Superman does not lose. Superman does not get beaten. Superman leaps buildings in a single bound, deflects bullets with his chest, and saves the city every single time. But you know what stops Superman dead in his tracks every single time? Kryptonite. And on the night of May 15th, 2026, at Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis, Caitlin Clark went full Superman. She put on one of the most electrifying, jaw-dropping individual performances that this league has seen in years. And it still was not enough, because the Kryptonite was right there on the sideline the entire time, standing in a blazer, holding a clipboard, answering to the name Stephanie White. I'm Dre Fiver. This is Street Hoops, and today we are going all the way in with absolutely zero apologies. Let me put the full picture in front of you, because every single detail of this story matters. The Indiana Fever lost to the Washington Mystics 104-102 in overtime. Caitlin Clark finished with a game-high 32 points, 7 three-pointers, 8 assists, and 4 rebounds. She scored 17 of those 32 points in the fourth quarter alone, with 5 three-pointers in a single quarter, and she dragged this Fever team from 9 points down all the way to a tie with 1.7 seconds left on the clock. She was Superman. She went full Cape City, full Krypton, full Heat vision with the game on the line. And the only reason that we are sitting here talking about an overtime loss instead of a comeback victory is because of the Kryptonite working against her the entire night. And I am going to break every piece of it down for you right now. Here is how this game unfolded quarter by quarter, because the numbers tell a story that is frankly embarrassing if you are on the Indiana Fever coaching staff. The Fever came out of the gates absolutely on fire in the first quarter. They hit 6 of their 7 three-point attempts in the opening period and jumped out to a 2-8-2-1 lead. Caitlin Clark had back-to-back threes. The crowd was alive, the energy was there, everything was clicking. And then, the second quarter happened. Washington outscored Indiana 20-9 in the second quarter. 20-9. Indiana managed 9 points in an entire quarter of professional basketball. They went from a 7-point lead to a 4-point deficit at halftime. The Mystics then dominated the third quarter so thoroughly that they built a 14-point lead. 14 points. This game went from a Fever blowout to a Mystics rout in about 18 minutes of game time. Now, I want you to ask yourself one question. What changed between the first quarter, where Indiana was shooting 60-something% from deep and looked unstoppable, and the second quarter, where they could barely score a bucket? The answer is simple. Caitlin Clark knocked down back-to-back threes, and Stephanie White looked at that and said, "Nope, sit down." She benched her. She benched the hot hand. She benched the best player on the floor at the exact moment when that player was announcing herself to the building. And the offense went from a freight train to a broken-down bus on the side of the highway immediately. According to multiple analysts who covered this game and have been watching this team all season, the rotation decisions made during that second quarter stretch were nothing short of indefensible. Coaching malpractice was the exact phrase being used on social media. Not one person, not two people, basketball people, film people, people who study this game for a living, all arriving at the exact same conclusion, watching the exact same footage. And Dre Fiver is here to tell you, they are right. You do not sit Caitlin Clark when Caitlin Clark is hot. That is not a complex basketball principle. That is not advanced analytics. That is something a pickup game player at the local YMCA understands on instinct. You ride the hot hand. You feed the fire. You do not pour water on the flame and then act surprised when the offense goes cold. Now here is what makes this whole thing even more maddening. Earlier in the 2026 season, Stephanie White sat in front of cameras and said, publicly on record, that Caitlin Clark challenges her every single day to be better as a coach. That Clark's skill set is elite. That her basketball mind is elite. That coaching Clark forces the entire staff to put the team in positions that allow Clark to do what she does best. Those are her words. Her own words. And then on Friday night, she sat Clark on the bench in the second quarter when Clark was doing exactly what she does best. Dropping back-to-back threes, running the offense, making the building shake. And the result? 20-9 in the second quarter. The proof is in the performance. And the performance was a disaster. There is a saying in coaching circles that the best ability is availability. But in Indiana, Dre Fiver wants to propose a new saying. The best strategy is not actively undermining your own superstar, because that is what this looked like from the outside. That fourth quarter run, that legendary, historic, goosebumps-inducing fourth quarter explosion from Caitlin Clark, did not happen because of Stephanie White. It happened in spite of Stephanie White. Clark reached a point where she essentially said, forget the game plan, forget the rotations, forget all of it. I am taking over this basketball game myself. And that is exactly what she did. And it was one of the most fun and exciting things I have personally seen in the WNBA since 2024. When Clark is locked in and going off like that, there is genuinely nobody in women's basketball who can match what she does. Nobody. Now let me talk about the mental fortitude of this woman, because it deserves its own conversation. For 3/4 of this basketball game, Caitlin Clark could not buy a bucket. She was 2 for 14 from the field through 3/4. 2 for 14. In a game she had clearly circled on the calendar after a slow start to the season from deep. Through the first 2 games of the 2026 season, Clark had gone 3 for 16 from three-point range. The critics were already sharpening their pens. The doubters were already whispering. And then, on Friday night, for 3/4, the shots were not dropping and it looked like another cold night from beyond the arc was incoming. And then the fourth quarter started. Clark told reporters after the game, and I am putting this in my own words here, that she felt like she could have made 5 more of those threes. That they were all right there, that staying mentally present when shots are not falling is the single hardest challenge a basketball player faces. And she said she is proud of herself for staying in it. She went 5 of 7 from 3 in the fourth quarter alone. 5 of 7. In 9 minutes of basketball, she scored 17 points in the fourth quarter, and 4 more in overtime. She finished 7 for 17 from 3 on the night after being 3 for 16 from deep in her first 2 games combined. That is a player who does not break. That is a player who does not crack. That is a player with the kind of mental infrastructure that separates the greats from everyone else. According to reporting from multiple outlets that follow the Fever closely, Clark now has at least 20 points, 4 rebounds, and 7 assists in each of her first 3 games of the 2026 season. 3 straight 20-point performances to open a season. And people want to talk about her shooting slump. The woman is averaging a near triple-double to start the year, and people are constructing negative narratives. Dre Fiver is not having it today. Let me walk you through the fourth quarter sequence because it genuinely deserves to be documented in detail for the historical record. Clark started the fourth quarter with back-to-back three-pointers that trimmed Washington's lead to 5 points. The building started waking up. She then hit a third triple that briefly gave Indiana the lead, 70-69. And the crowd went absolutely nuclear. Washington responded and rebuilt a cushion, but Clark hit a 4-3 with about 90 seconds left to cut it back to 4. Then the Mystics went up 8 with 50 seconds left and the game looked over. Done. Indiana was cooked, and that is when the supernatural happened. A Misha Hines-Allen layup, a Mystics turnover, a Kelsey Mitchell 3 cutting it to 3 points. 2 teams exchanging free throws. Indiana down 3 with 5 seconds left, and then a brilliantly designed play from the Indiana bench, reportedly one of the few correct coaching decisions of the entire night, got Clark the ball on the left wing. She drifted toward the out-of-bounds line, caught the handoff from Hines-Allen, and pulled the trigger with 1.7 seconds left. Bang! Tie game. Gainbridge Fieldhouse went into full detonation mode, and Sonia Citron launched a heave from beyond half-court that appeared to go in, only to be waved off on video review because the ball had not left her hand before the buzzer. The basketball gods wanted 5 more minutes of this drama, and frankly, so did every single person watching. This was a Caitlin Clark performance for the ages in a fourth quarter. 5 threes, 17 points, 9 minutes. One of the greatest individual fourth quarter performances in recent WNBA history, bar none. Dre Fiver is putting that on record right now. Now, we need to talk about Kelsey Mitchell. And Dre is going to be measured here because Mitchell finished this game with 24 points, and she had her moments. She hit a big 3 late in regulation that was absolutely critical to even getting the Fever to that tie. Her offensive talent is not in question, but there is a conversation that needs to happen about the overtime execution, and it cannot be avoided. Mitchell missed 2 free throws in the last minute of overtime, and she missed a contested 2-pointer from the left corner as time expired that would have sent the game to double overtime. 2 missed free throws, a missed buzzer shot, in overtime, when Caitlin Clark just spent an entire fourth quarter doing the impossible to even get them there. And beyond the missed shots, the pattern of ball-dominant, isolation-heavy play that has followed Mitchell throughout her career showed up again in overtime. Multiple people who watched this game closely, analysts, commentators, fans with eyes, pointed out consistently that when Clark is the obvious hot hand, the ball needs to be in her hands in crunch time. That is not complicated basketball philosophy. That is just logic. And yet, possession after possession in overtime, the offense ran through Mitchell in isolation sets, while Clark, the woman who just hit 5 threes in the fourth quarter, stood outside waiting. The Fever were outscored in overtime. They ran out of gas. And a significant part of that is because the team did not trust the player who had just earned that trust 1,000 times over in the previous 9 minutes of basketball. Now, credit where credit is absolutely due, because this version of Street Hoops respects the game. The Washington Mystics came into Gainbridge Fieldhouse, and they were a problem from start to finish. Sonia Citron scored a career-high 30 points. Kiki Iriafen had a career-high 25 points to go along with 13 rebounds, going 11 of 17 from the field. The Mystics as a team shot 56%. Citron and Iriafen combined for 44 points in the second half alone. Shakira Austin added 19 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists. And then, on top of all of that, rookie Coty McMahon made her WNBA debut and dropped 13 points, with 5 of those coming in overtime when the game was on the line. Think about what Washington is becoming. Citron, Iriafen, Austin, McMahon. According to analysts who have been tracking this Mystics roster, that trio of Citron, Iriafen, and Austin accounted for nearly 70% of Washington's scoring in this game combined. That is a dominant, star-driven, offensively balanced roster, being guided by a coaching staff that clearly has a system and a vision. And here is what makes the Fever's second and third quarter collapse even more inexplicable. Washington did not feature a single starter over the age of 25. This is a young, hungry, fearless team. And they dominated Indiana's experienced veterans in the middle quarters, because Indiana had no answers and no adjustments. Iriafen in particular was a force that the Fever simply could not contain. She went perfect from the field in the third quarter, not missing a single one of her 6 attempts, including a three-pointer that pushed the Mystics' lead to double digits. This woman is a legitimate star in this league right now. 6'3", elite footwork, motor that never stops, and the kind of second-year leap that was entirely predictable if you had been watching her from jump. The Mystics are real. Do not sleep on them for a single second this season. And then there is the Aaliyah Boston situation, which deserves its own spotlight, because it adds another significant layer to everything that went wrong for Indiana on this night. Boston left the game in the third quarter with a lower leg injury and did not return. She had 9 points and 4 rebounds in 20 minutes before going down, and while that is not a blockbuster stat line, her presence matters enormously for this team, not just on offense but in the paint, on defense, and as a pick-and-roll option alongside Clark. According to multiple reporters covering the Fever, Coach Stephanie White had no injury update on Boston after the game, which is not encouraging language when you are already sitting at 1-2 on the season, with back-to-back home losses. The lack of pick-and-roll action between Clark and Boston has been a running theme of criticism around this team since the season started, and multiple basketball minds have pointed out that without Boston in the lineup, that particular weapon, arguably Indiana's most dangerous when deployed correctly, is completely off the table, and the paint battle tells the whole story. Indiana was outscored 48-28 in the paint. They attempted 42 three-pointers. 42. The offense is one-dimensional, completely perimeter-dependent, and the moment the threes stop falling, as they did for 3 quarters on Friday night, there is no alternative plan, no interior counter, no way to get into the teeth of the defense through physical basketball. That is a systemic coaching and roster deployment problem, and it is not going to fix itself. So where does all of this leave the Indiana Fever as a franchise? 3 games into the 2026 WNBA season, Indiana is 1-2. They have lost both of their home games. Their franchise cornerstone is battling through a shooting slump, even as she still delivers individual performances that would make Hall of Famers blush. Their second-best player is struggling with shot selection and ball movement in critical moments. Their big man is now hurt with no timeline. And their head coach is making rotation decisions that the entire basketball world is loudly and unanimously questioning. That is a lot of problems stacking up very early. Analysts who have been watching this team closely noted that Indiana entered this season with high expectations and a largely returning roster, meaning the chemistry should be almost automatic at this point. Instead, the offense looks disjointed in large stretches, the paint defense is getting carved up, and the team is entirely too reliant on individual heroics rather than functioning as a cohesive unit. The Fever scored 102 points in this game and still lost in overtime. They had their 2 stars combine for 56 points and still came up short. Something in the infrastructure is broken, and pointing that out is not pessimism, it is honesty. And yet, the reason people will still tune into every single Indiana Fever game this season, the reason this franchise is what it is right now, is because of the woman wearing number 22. Caitlin Clark just spent 3 quarters looking completely lost from the field, and then came alive in the 9th inning and almost single-handedly stole a win that her team had no business competing for. She said afterwards that she is proud of herself for staying in it, for not letting the missed shots early dictate her mindset in the moments that mattered most. And she has every reason to be proud, because what she did in that fourth quarter, 5 threes, 17 points, a miraculous game-tying shot with 1.7 seconds left, that was not basketball as a sport. That was Caitlin Clark as a phenomenon. The Fever are a flawed team. Stephanie White has real and serious questions to answer about how she deploys this roster. Kelsey Mitchell needs to find the right balance between assertiveness and deference when Clark is clearly the hottest player on the court. The bench depth is thin. The paint presence is compromised. All of that is true. All of that is real. But none of it diminishes what Caitlin Clark did on Friday night. She went Superman. She put on the cape. She refused to let this team go quietly. The kryptonite around her cost Indiana the win, but it could not kill the performance. And as long as number 22 is lacing up for Indiana, no lead is safe, no deficit is final, and no game is ever truly over. That is the Clark guarantee. That is what you buy a ticket for. And that is what Street Hoops is going to keep documenting every single time it happens. 1 and 2. Home losses in both. The clock is ticking, Indiana. The building needs to deserve the Superman on the floor. Right now, it does not. But the Superman, she showed up. She always shows up. Don't blame her for the kryptonite in the building. This is Dre Fiver. This is Street Hoops. And we are just warming up. If this breakdown hit you different today, if you felt every single word of what Dre just laid down, smash that like button right now. Open hand, full palm. Don't be shy about it. Then drop your hottest takes in the comments below. Is Stephanie White costing this team wins? Is Kelsey Mitchell the problem in crunch time? Or is Indiana just a work in progress that needs more time? I want everything, no filter, no softening. Straight fire only. And if Street Hoops is not already in your subscription list, fix that right now. Hit subscribe, ring that bell, and never miss a breakdown when the WNBA is giving us drama like this every single night. Dre Fiver. Street Hoops, we out.